Kathy from Disabling Action.
I'm Sasha Blair Goldenson from the Rise and Resist Elevator Action Group.
Welcome all of you, the Rally for Working Elevators.
And we're here this morning. We called everybody here for a simple reason, that elevators are for everyone. And that means building them and making them work.
We'll have brief remarks from a great set of speakers, and we'll also leave time for some questions.
And we're going to wrap up by 9:20. So everyone can go upstairs to the board meeting to testify. And we're going to start off on the bar.
Constant elevator and escalator failures make subway a trip to almost 2 hours late evening, the end of which I had a mishap which caused me to be hospitalized for 3 weeks because of a broken elevator. We're calling on the MTA to commit to announce outages on affected platforms and subway lines, and Governor Hochul to recognize this as an MTA priority. Thank you.
Who speaks next? So, I'm Sasha Blair Goldenson from the Elevator Action Group, and we're here today because everyone who needs an elevator to ride the subway safely, deliveries, you have to take their chances on stairs. That is a danger that the MTA can fix. Elevator, not rocket science. And the MTA has so many dedicated, hardworking people that can fix this. But it's Governor Kathy Hochul who sets MTA priorities and directs resources. So we need to call on her to prioritize this, to prioritize us, so that elevators can stop being a danger for us and a vulnerability for New York's economic future. New York needs the tourists to come. We need older adults to retire here. We need young families to settle. And in 2023, that means reliably accessible public transit. But we have hope, because last June we were upstairs to announce a landmark agreement to build elevators in every subway station. But while that happens, it's important that they be working, because that investment is not going to pay off if it just means more yellow gates. Governor Hochul, prioritize us, fix the elevators, and keep them working.
What do we want? Working elevators. When do we want them? Now. What do we want? Working elevators. When do we want them? Now. What do we want? Working elevators. When do we want them? Now.
Next we have Dr. Sharon McLennan-Weir from Sydney, the Center for Independence of the Disabled, New York. And you wanted people to spell their names? Yeah, thank you. Will you state your name before you speak? Okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Sharon McLennan-Weir, Sharon, S-H-A-R-O-N, McLennan, M-C-L-E-N-N-O-N, Weir, W-I-E-R. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Independence of the Disabled, New York, Sydney. I'm here to advocate with all our participating advocates for accessible elevators. Sydney is happy that the landmark settlement was signed that allow for new elevators to be established by the MTA. However, we recognize that the existing elevators must be accessible, must be clean, and and must be readily available for all patrons now. It's going to take the next 35 years for these elevators, the new elevators, to be established. However, for the old elevators, we need to ensure that they're operational now. People with disabilities deserve to go to work, they deserve to go to school, they deserve to go to medical appointments, they deserve to go to family engagements, they deserve to go to church and all recreational activities. If they need to take the subway, they need to have an elevator that is in working condition at all times. We need announcements. We need to know when an elevator is not working so that we don't have to spend 2 or 3 hours to get to our destination. Also, we need to feel safe in the elevator. We shouldn't have to worry that the elevator is going to be broken and we get stuck in the elevator. We shouldn't have to be in an elevator that comprises feces and urines and vomit. We should make sure that the elevators is clean for all New Yorkers. We want more people to come to New York, but are they really going to come to use elevators that are full of feces and urine and vomit? No, they are not. So we need to ensure that elevators are acceptable for all people, regardless of disabilities. And we want it now. We want it now. We want it now.
Nick Astor. What do we want? Elevator maintenance. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Elevator maintenance. When do we want it? Now. What do we want?
Elevator maintenance.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Elevator maintenance.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Elevator maintenance.
When do we want it?
Now.
Woo!
Sorry. Traffic. I'm Nick Astor with the Comptroller's office. I'm gonna use my little fact sheet. Sorry, guys. I want to thank Rise and Resist for gathering us here today. And advocates have been tirelessly working on this for decades. You know, the MTA and the city, the state has made a lot of commitments. In general, we have the general commitment of making the subway 95% accessible 2025. We have the commitment to make sidewalks and roadways accessible 2036. And to be honest, that's a long time away. I'm gonna be an old man by then. And the honest truth is, we need something as soon as possible. We honestly need it now. And, you know, just from the Comptroller's office point of view, we're committed to, as congestive pricing gets implemented, to kind of looking at that timetable and seeing where we can speed up that timetable. And I think that part of that commitment, while we're looking at that, is to work on the elevators that we already have, right? Yeah. A show of faith that they are really committed to these timetables and that they do really care about disabled people, people with disabilities. And so I think that working on the elevators we have would be a great way for the city to reinforce its commitment. Thank you.
When I say Hochul, you say fix it. Hochul, fix it. Hochul, fix it. When I say Hochul, you say fund it. Hochul, fund it. Hochul, fund it. When I say Hochul, you say fix it. Hochul, fix it. Hochul, fix it. Woo!
Now we have Chloe Hochul from Disability Registry.
Hi everyone, my name is Chloe Holzman accessibility rights advocates. DRA is a nonprofit national disability rights law center, and along with our co-counsel at the global law firm Shepherd Mullen Richter in Hampton, we are incredibly proud to represent many of the advocates here in multiple lawsuits against the MTA to bring accessibility to the New York City subway system. As folks have talked about, we were thrilled last June, and many of you were here for the announcement of our global settlement to bring accessibility to 95% of New York City subway stations over the next 30 years. But only about a quarter of them, I will note, are fully accessible at the moment. But we know that the job is not done. Not only do elevators need to be installed, they need to be maintained. So DRA and Shepherd Mullen are representing plaintiffs in a separate lawsuit, one that has not settled, one that has gone up to the Second Circuit and back to the district court that the MTA is still litigating about the need to maintain elevators in the system and provide reasonable accommodations to people when elevators are out of service. We want the MTA to come to the table and settle this case too. We need them to finish the job so that people who rely on elevators, and that's everyone because elevators are for everyone, can use the subway's elevators to get where we need to go. Thank you.
When I say Hochul, you say settle it. Hochul, settle it. Hochul, settle it. When I say Hochul, you say settle it. Settle it. Hochul, settle it. Hochul, settle it. That was a test.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Dustin Jones, D-U-S-T-I-N. Jones. I'm not that sure. Don't you do that. You can't see it. It ain't much like that. My name is Dustin Jones, D-U-S-T-I-N, last name Jones, J-O-N-E-S. I normally don't write anything when I do these type of things, I normally wing it. But thinking about this yesterday, I decided to gather some thoughts I had and put it on today's version of paper. I am a grown man, and despite using a wheelchair, I feel like I can handle myself when I step out of my home and travel. But with the MTA's slow response to safety and accessibility, I feel like handling myself when I travel has been taken away from me. Now granted, the MTA has agreed to a major accessibility upgrades finishing at a much later time from now. But when you can't travel with confidence that you're going to be safe and have an accessible ride in the system that you help financially contribute to, it is heartbreaking. Now before the MTA puts its money it says it doesn't have where its mouth is and bring new access to more stations across the system, I'm asking that they pay attention to what they already have here and come up with a legally binding plan, because that's the only way that they can get anything done when it comes to accessibility, and maintain and upgrade the elevators that we have now. Because I will no longer backtrack myself elsewhere when I run into a broken elevator. And believe me, myself, the FDNY, and the NYPD is tired of carrying my big ass out the subway station every time an elevator breaks down. Thank you.
Now we have Kashif Hussain from the
how he gets high. I try.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kanshim Sen. I'm the Deputy Public Advocate for Infrastructure and Environmental Justice. I'm joined by Sasha Just, who is the Community Organizer for Infrastructure and Environmental Justice. MTA is making a very slow progress in terms of meeting the ADA requirements and services to our disabled and elderly New Yorkers. We're seeing a pattern where elevators and escalators constantly break down across the city. This not only creates dangerous conditions for traveling in the subway, but unpredictability impacts people using wheelchairs, caregivers with strollers, older adults, workers with deliveries, and travelers with luggage. According to the City Council report that you all have in your possession, a little over 25% of New York City's 472 stations are fully accessible, and the numbers are even lower in low-income communities. The City Council Policy Task Force reported back in February of this year that almost 10% of the MTA's elevators and 11% of MTA's escalators were out of service at any given time in the month of January. New Yorkers have a right to be angry. Let's talk about New Yorkers who are subjected to horrible experiences by getting trapped in these MTA elevators. 3 elevators at Clark Street subway station in Brooklyn had 35 non-scheduled service outages and 11 sets of trapped riders. A single elevator at 170th Street on the elevator number 4 line in the Bronx had 13 entrapments. Riders were trapped 10 times at the 14th Street station in the elevator. The list goes on and on. Nearly 100,000 services outages and 10,000 entrapments since 2015. On average, more than 30 elevators break down every single day. Oftentimes, MTA does not announce these outages to the impacted riders. Many times we don't see MTA staff present to assist or guide riders in the case of elevator and escalator outages. Our office has been advocating for a long time that MTA must schedule the maintenance and repair crew immediately to address the breakdown and outages. When there are outages or suspended services, MTA must make it easy for New Yorkers to get free alternative transportation in case of service outages. The burden should never be on New Yorkers who want to travel to their destination. This is where Governor Hochul needs to step up and make sure MTA is being funded adequately and the needed repairs and maintenance are done properly on time. So they got to fix this. Thank you. Thank you.
Fight, fight, fight. Accessibility is a human right. Fight, fight, fight. Accessibility is a human right. Fight, fight, fight. Accessibility is a human right. Fight, fight, fight. Accessibility is a human right.
Good morning. My name is Kara Leibowitz. I'm the Advocacy Coordinator at the Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, BCID. Like most people in their 30s, I lead a busy life. I travel all over New York City and Long Island for work and for myself. I frequently ride the subway, sometimes many times a week or even 3 to 4 times a day. I rode the subway to get here today. And I frequently encounter out-of-service elevators. Riding the subway as a wheelchair user is difficult enough as a wheelchair user, but elevator outages make it more than difficult. It can be impossible. More than once, I've gotten off the train at a quote-unquote accessible stop, only to find the elevator is out of service. I have to turn around, get back on the train, and often ride many stops out of my way to the next accessible station. I can tell you, when that happens, I'm tremendously frustrated and angry. And I get even more angry when I see the elevators like the one at Church Avenue on the 2 and 5 trains near my home in Brooklyn, which have been out of service more days than not over the past month. It doesn't have to be this way. Other cities like Boston have agreed to court settlements and vastly improved elevator maintenance in their subways. We know there's been some progress here at the MTA. Last summer, the MTA settled 2 accessibility lawsuits with BCID and other disability groups that will eventually make nearly all subway stations accessible, usually with elevators, and that's a big step. But without working elevators, we'll still be stuck. It's time for the MTA to settle our elevator maintenance lawsuit so that all of us who use elevators can rely on them. Thank you.
Hey, MTA! How many elevators broken today?
My name is Kara Leibowitz, C-A-R-A-L-I-E-W-I-T-C. Thank you.
Woo! Hey, MTA! How many elevators broken today? Hey, MTA! How many elevators broken today? Hey, MTA! How many elevators broken today? Hey, MTA! How many elevators broken today?
Hi, I'm Jean Ryan. I'm from Disabled in Action, DIA for short. We need to have working elevators, and if they are broken, we need to know from the street level if they're out or not. Because why should we take one and then find out that the other one is broken? We need to find out when we're on the train that the elevator at the station we might be going to is broken. We shouldn't be trying to check our phones all the time to see if an elevator is out. And many times they're out and there's no indication until you get there. And then we see these yellow barricades or yellow tape. That's not soon enough. We need to know before we try to get on an elevator that it's broken. But most importantly, they need to fix them sooner. And why are so many elevators out so much of the time? They say, well, they're privately owned elevators. Well, it's the subway. Why do we have to care if it's privately owned or not? We need all the elevators, and we need them all to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on to the light.
All right, I think it'll stand.
Sure, I'm Tony Murphy with the People's MTA, and I just want to say, to pick up the word that Sasha used, priorities. This is an outrage that we live in the richest part. This is Wall Street, of the richest country of the world, and we still have, the people here still have to have rallies and lawsuits to make the subway work the way it should for working elevators. This is a matter of priorities, all right. We have an object lesson recently with the big bailouts. These banks, representing the richest people on the planet, were given money immediately, no questions asked. If they can bail out Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank and these what I call vulture capitalists in Silicon Valley in the space of a couple of days, we can have working elevators for everybody in every station. We can have elevators now. It's a matter of priorities. As Sasha said, whether they fix these elevators, they should be able to do it. We shouldn't have to have these rallies all the time and these lawsuits all the time. And priorities is where they spend their money. I see cops all over the subway these days, and what they're more likely to do is make racist arrests. We need resources for the people that serve the people who use these public transportation. Elijah Goodson would be with us here today if we had working elevators in every single station. Kathy Hochul, fix it now. Elevators are for the people. Subways are for the people. Thank you.
MTA, don't delay. Fix the elevators right away. MTA, don't delay. Fix the elevators right away. MTA, don't delay. Fix the elevators right away.
And my name is Jessica Murray. I'm with the Rise and Resist Elevator Action Group. And I'm the chair of the advisory committee on transit accessibility to the MTA. And you know, I designed this logo, Elevators Are for Everyone, because I thought that the reason people didn't support more funding for elevators is because all they saw was that wheelchair. And it seemed like not enough people actually need it to get around. But that's not true. I've watched elevators, I've seen the people get on and off. It's not wheelchair users, it's mothers with strollers, it's travelers with luggage, it's people with packages, it's people with broken legs, with canes, with heart conditions that you can't see. It's bigger than just the wheelchair users. And I think bringing everyone in makes the point that we all need this. The MTA for years has said, we can't afford it, we can't afford it. They just opened an $11 billion boondoggle at Grand Central that could have paid for elevators in 75% of the stations. So we're past the point of arguing that we need this. But you know, you can't just build elevators and leave them there to break. You have to keep them running, and the MTA refuses to acknowledge that they have a problem. They need to acknowledge it and fix it, and also just treat us all with respect, and not send people out of their way, waste their time by not giving them the vital information that they need before they get into a station, before they get off of a subway car, etc. We need elevator maintenance, and we need it now. Michael Ring from Disabled in Action.
Hi, my name is Michael Ring, and for those that need a verbal description of my appearance, I am an indescript kind of middle-aged white guy wearing a green hat and hoodie that says Disabled in Action, the organization I'm representing today. In a few minutes, we're all going to go inside this building. There are scores of functioning elevators. That means that everyone who works there and everyone who visits can seamlessly get to the 20th floor. It's easy. One of the elevators might be broken and no one has to care. They just go in and press the button and get upstairs. But if you're a person who needs an elevator to ride the subway, you don't need one elevator. You're going to need 4 or 5 to get where you're going. You have to get from the ground to the platform to the mezzanine all around, 4 or 5 each way, 4 or 5 to get back, 5 days a week to go to work. You can't go to work if you need an elevator, if the stairs are a barrier. The MTA just spent $11 billion to build a new terminal at Grand Central Station so some people can save 10 minutes on their commute. There are hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers who are living isolated, unproductive lives because they can't go to work. They can't go to work and they're not paying taxes. The MTA needs to redirect its resources to fix and maintain the elevators, let us know when they're not working, and build more and build them more quickly. They'll make money, we'll pay taxes, we'll go to work. It's easy to get done. It's just a matter of priorities. They want to spend many billions of dollars on a shiny new station that some people might use, or they can build elevators that everyone will use. Yes. Thank you very much.
When I say Hochul, you say fix it. Hochul, fix it. Hochul, fix it. When I say Hochul, you say fund it. Hochul, fund it. Hochul, fund it.
Fight. Accessibility is human right. Fight. Accessibility is human right. Fight. Accessibility is a 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 right.
Thank you.
I am Edward Good, chairperson of CWA Local 1180's Committee on People with Disabilities. I want to dedicate my remarks to a magnificent leader of the disability justice and rights movement who would have been here today, Mary Kessinger, but unfortunately she passed away on March 14th. I myself have a one-sided hearing loss and other disabilities. My union promotes the status and careers of disabled people in the workplace, the union, the local, and society. We support all court cases of the entire disability community to build enough elevators and ramps to make the subways 100%, I said 100%, accessible, and to ensure that all broken subway elevators are repaired immediately, I said immediately, like the great movie that did pretty good at the Academy Awards, Everything Everywhere All at Once. As public sector New York City administrative workers, we state it's not acceptable in the great city of New York that all New York City subway system elevators and stations and lines don't have elevators, and that the New York City still has the lowest percentage of accessible subways of any U.S. city. Elevators are needed by New Yorkers with disabilities, parents of small children who try to transport them, and seniors, including many of our active and retired members. More than 90% of our union's members are women, and more than 90% are people of color. Just as our union is fighting against violations of the 1963 Equal Pay Act and the 1964 Civil Rights Act, in which our members who are women or people of color are paid much less than white males for doing the same work, we oppose any discrimination against people with disabilities. Bigotry occurs when some people are regarded like the mathematical symbol less than. Disabled people are tired of being treated as less than. I bet the elevators where rich people live and work, where elected officials live and work, never break down and are always repaired immediately if they do. When I travel with Mary Kessinger to rallies like these, we frequently had to change our routes 1,000,000 times because the elevators kept breaking down and the breakdowns were not posted on the 511 call-in, and Mary would look at me and say, "Welcome to my world." Well, that world needs to change. Let's all work together to make all subways and subway lines accessible, and for subway elevators to be in perfect working order, everything, everywhere, all at once. Or as Martin Luther King once said, justice delayed is justice denied. Thank you.
Thank you. What do we want? Accessibility. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Accessibility. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Accessibility. When do we want it? Now.
That concludes our speakers, and we'll take questions if there are any.
We pay taxes too. A lot of us.
No questions.
Fight, fight, fight. Accessibility is a human right. 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 Fight, fight, fight. Accessibility is a human right.
Fight, fight, fight.
Accessibility is a human right. What do we want? Elevator maintenance. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Elevator maintenance. When do we want it? Now. What do we want?